Hey y'all, and welcome to my channel where I am going to be focusing on mental illness in the Black community, a topic that I don't think is focused on nearly enough as it should be. Okay, I do want to make it clear from the beginning that I am not a medical professional. I am just a African American mom who has a loved one that has a serious mental illness. And when I say serious mental illness, I'm saying that to include, um, it could be something like schizophrenia is one, bipolar 1 and 2 are some other ones, depression, borderline personality disorders. So everyone who has a loved one and they're in the African American community, you're welcome to join in, listen, and comment. Also would like to say that I'm going to bend over backwards trying to, in an effort to protect my loved one, because this video is not going to be about, so much as the person with the illness, but more about the caregivers who typically tend to be mothers. So I just wanted to say that. Let's see. So you may say, why just focus on Black people? As I mentioned before, I don't think that we focus on this topic enough in the African American community. And maybe that's because of the stigma attached to mental illness. I belong to the National Alliance of Mental Illness, and I also want to say that they do not in any way sponsor my videos, but it's just a resource that's out there that I would like to share with you all in case you're not familiar with NAMI, the National Alliance of Mental Illness. They actually have classes. They have support groups. The classes that they have, one of them is called Family to Family, and that class is for, family members, not the person who has the illness, but family members. And when I took it, it was a 12-week course. I think now they have narrowed it down to 8 weeks. When I took it, I went once a week for 12 weeks, and the class was totally free, and it was about 2.5 hours long each class. Now I think they've shortened it. Even when I was taking it, you did have another option where you could take the family to family course, and they may offer it 2 times a week, and then that way you'd be done in 6 weeks. Now I think they have shortened the class down to 8 weeks. And if you're not familiar with NAMI, I strongly suggest that you go to their website, NAMI.org. NAMI has a national organization, and they also have state organizations, and then they have local organizations. So I strongly urge you all out there to do your research and find out what NAMI offers and how they may be able to help you and your family. I've taken the NAMI Family to Family class as a student, and then I went back and I took the Train the Trainer course, and I actually became a NAMI trainer. I've actually taught the class. I also attend a support group. The support groups were mostly in person, if not all in person, before COVID. And then after COVID, the support groups moved online. Some of them at this point in time might be back in person, but the one that I attend once a month is online. It would be nice to attend one of these support groups in person, but in my area as of right now, there is not one that's offered, at least not locally. But anyway, in these support groups, it might be like mostly moms It might be 5 or 6 people every now and then. Maybe a dad would show up, which was nice, but it was just mostly 6 people or less. So it was really intimate, where we could discuss what was going on and maybe exchange ideas, and just be there for each other. And that's the main thing that I want to get across on this channel, is that you are not alone. You are not alone, and I want this to be a space, a safe space for you all to come and share experiences. I will share mine. Again, I'm going to protect my loved one as much as possible. I want to protect that person's privacy, but as a mom, I just want to share my experiences. And I think I want my audience primarily targeting African Americans, because I think when you're African American, that's like a whole nother layer that you have to deal with, the mental illness itself, and then just being African American, that can create a whole nother set of issues for us. For example, I say this for example because there's an area where I go to get my hair done, and every time I go get my hair done, I pass this young adult white male at an intersection with his sign, and the sign says something about Jesus, and he's just shouting at the cars as they pass by. Whenever I see him at that location, I always think of my loved one who is currently medicated, I want to say, and I'll share more about that later. But if that was him out there on the street, I doubt if he would be there for long before someone would call the police on him. But every single time I go get my hair done, this young man is there. And also, even in my support group, one, I want to say that when I took the NAMI class, and NAMI is great, don't get me wrong about that, but when I took the 12-week class, there were white people there, there were Indian people there, there were Asian people there, but I was the only black person in a class that was full to capacity. So there was at least 25 family members there. Sometimes husbands and wives would come together. There would be like maybe somebody's mother had a mental illness, and they were there to try to get information to help their mother. There were people there trying to get information to help a sibling out. But regardless, I was the only black person in that class. And then when I took the trainer class, which was also full to capacity, I forgot how many students were in that training class, but I was one of 3 black women, 3 moms that were there being trained to be a NAMI class facilitator. In my support group, once every blue moon, somebody African American will pop in, but that's once every blue moon. And I know there are people out there dealing with mental illness in their families, but maybe because of stigma, maybe they just don't know, maybe they're just not aware, I don't know, but we're not out here getting the help that we need. We're not out here talking about it. I actually had gone, we have a different pastor now, but I actually went to the pastor of my church and I asked him, because often the NAMI classes are taught in like at a church. You know how churches have different events, in the community. When I took the family to family class, it was at a church at like maybe 7 o'clock on a Thursday night. When the support groups were in person, it was at a church. When I taught, the person that I taught with, I'm kind of an introvert naturally, and so I feel like I have a lot of good information to share, but because I'm an introvert, I was very blessed to be partnered I had a co-facilitator, and this person was a retired school teacher, and it was a blessing to be paired with her because she was like a natural at teaching. And so she and I taught that class at a local church. And so after I taught this class with this lady, I went to the pastor at my church and discussed having a NAMI support group or even a family to family class at our church one day a week in the evening. And he shut it down. He was totally not interested in having anything to do with mental illness at the church. That pastor, by the way, is no longer there. And I haven't approached the new pastor about that. But for whatever reason, African American people are not really discussing it. And I'm pretty sure there's a need out there. And by me joining, being engaged with this organization, NAMI, that's one of the things that caused me, or one of the reasons why I have completely dropped the stigma that's associated around mental illness. And what I'm finding out is the more you talk about it, it never fails for somebody to say, really? Because my husband, my daughter, my son, my whoever, I'm pretty sure they are bipolar, or they're depressed, or they have this or that. I mean, it never fails. It just never fails. There was a young man that used to stand near the building, my work office, and this guy clearly had a mental illness. One day we had a meeting, the group that I work with, we were having a meeting, and the topic of this young man came up. The person who was, the unit chief of my unit was actually laughing about this guy, making jokes. And I was thinking to myself, you're making jokes about somebody with a mental illness, and you don't even know who in this office has a loved one who has a mental illness. And not only did I have a loved one with a mental illness, I didn't think his jokes were funny at all, but I knew at least 2 other people who had told me that they had a sibling that was diagnosed with schizophrenia. And this guy was just so insensitive and ignorant, and he was making jokes about this homeless guy who stands outside our building talking to himself. So anyway, I'm in this club that I didn't choose to be in, and I'd rather not be in it, but I have been for over a decade now. Last night, people were bringing in the end of 2025 and counting down to 2026. And I'm actually counting down, but I'm not looking forward to 2026 because currently my loved one is medicated. He is medicated because he had an incident approximately 5 years ago. And because of that incident related to him having an untreated, at that time, mental illness, he got into some trouble, and he is currently on probation. He has been for the past 5 years approximately, and that's going to end in 2026. So I have not been looking forward to 2026 because a lot of times people who have a mental illness will go off of their medication. And when that happens, the chaos begins. And that's what I'm afraid of. That's what I'm afraid is going to happen in 2026. I'm afraid that we're going to be thrown back into this chaos when he goes back into, if he decides that he doesn't want to take the medication, because the medications, the antipsychotic medications, have terrible side effects. And that's why a lot of people do not want to stay on them. But I'm also going to discuss medications in a later video. So at this point, thank you all for listening. And I hope you would join me for future videos on this topic.